Hi, and now we're going to go look at Getting Together, Part 2. Now, sexuality is where we're going to begin here, and it's a major part of the development of an intimate relationship. Most intimate relationships have a sexual component. We need to explore some terminology to better understand the diversity of the human experience. First, sexuality, or how we express ourselves as sexual beings, this includes the biological, emotional, social, and even spiritual aspects. Let's start with distinguishing between sex and gender. These two concepts, although they're common words, we largely misunderstand the difference between the two. Sex is our biology, the anatomical differences. Generally, and I emphasize generally, male and female. However, there are examples of people who are intersexed, have both male and female characteristics. The term intersex gets confused with transsexual, which refers to people born in one identifiable sex and have modifications either through surgery or hormones to become the other sex. Now, gender. Now, here's where it's important. Sex is biology. Gender is socially constructed cultural and psychological traits and behaviors that relate to being masculine and feminine. Really what it's boiled down to is we learn to be masculine or feminine to match the male and the female generally. So how it is to be masculine in Canada is not the same as it is to be in the United States or in Europe or in Australia or in Southeast Asia. Culture defines masculinity and femininity, and it's not got to do with biology. So biology is about what you're defined as and what your body looks like, and gender is how your culture educates you to be masculine and feminine. Transgendered, in a broad term for people who who they think they are, is incongruent with the sex one has been assigned at birth. Moving to sexual orientation, this is a reflection of a person's personal preference for sexual partners. Terms you're likely familiar with: the heterosexual, which is sexually attracted to people of the opposite sex, and homosexual, sexually attracted to people of the same sex. We can include bisexual, sexually attracted to either sex, and asexual, not sexually attracted to either sex. Now, all of this can make growing up in family development being even more challenging for some people. So we're going to look at this new custom, dating and beyond. Dating allows individuals to go out alone together without the intention of marrying. This increasingly opens the door to choosing one's own partner and not having to marry them first to get to know them. Going steady emerged as a pattern. Too young to marry, so it entered into what was known as, and this was in the 60s, sex for fun. This emerged, as I mentioned, in the 60s, where youth embraced the change and openness, plus the advent of birth control impacted this development. Now, attitudes towards premarital sexual activity continued to become more permissive until about the 1980s, and since then have stayed relatively level. Now, there is another term that you've probably heard before, and that is what is known as the double standard, where men seem to have more sexual freedom. It's natural for men to do this, let them, sow their wild oats, than women. And if women were as free sexually, they would be described as promiscuous. And so this double standard, it's either everybody can or everybody shouldn't. But it's not that way, or it hasn't been, at least historically. Dating in adolescence serves four functions or four goals. One is identity. It's an important activity in our youth time, at adolescence, to self-explore and to identify who we are and get a sense of who we are. And sometimes we do that by bouncing thoughts and ideas off of others. So one of the elements that dating can do is to help us to get to know who we are and who we're not. And then the second, and this is an important one because it revisits, remember the developmental task from part 1 of intimacy, that's part 2 here. Intimacy, the pursuit of a committed, exclusive relationship that fosters self-disclosure, emotional intimacy, interdependency, that means you depend on each other, and emotional attachment. The third, status. It's a way of enhancing social status. Who you date can sometimes make you feel better about yourself, can elevate your status or lower your status. And then the fourth is sex. The initiation into sexual experience and fulfillment. Issues related to same-sex relationships in the teen years. Although there's more acceptance, there's still stigma and challenges with friends and family. Same-sex dating may be difficult for high school and post-secondary students due to the prejudice and or other pressures, even physical harassment that still exists. Because of social expectations and stigma, rarely acceptable outside gay and lesbian society to bring a date to the same sex of the same sex to a social function. Often same-sex dating is postponed until adulthood. The more dialogue between child and parent regarding sexuality and intimacy contribute to the late first-time sexual experiences. When children are not engaged with their parents, they may be more permissive and may also turn to alcohol to engage in sexual activity earlier. The term hooking up is a term used to identify a wide range of sexual behaviors. They usually involve little to any promise or desire for anything long-term in a committed relationship. Now, as a part of a lot of entering into intimacy is contraception issues, sexually transmitted infections, STIs, and online dating are currently issues we're going to touch on now. Now, contraception and the advent of women's choice and control over their own sexuality. Contraception has had a general effect of lowering teen pregnancies. However, STIs are increasing. The incident rate are high among adolescents and young adults, and then again high in middle-aged and older adults. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis have been steadily rising since the 1990s. HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, is a virus that attacks our immune system. The most chronic outcome is AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Now, getting together in the establishment of an intimate relationship today is more risky than it was in the past. So some of the direction that this has taken, are moving in terms of dating, is moving to the use of technology, Facebook, Skype, Tinder, eHarmony. 1/4 of all Canadians say they have tried online dating sites. 4 main social forces that drive the rapid growth of online dating. Well, one is the growing proportion of the population composed of singles. 2, increasing career and time pressures means this group needs efficient ways of meeting intimates. Single people, this is 3, single people are more mobile. And then 4, workplace romances are on the decline due to growing sensitivity around sexual harassment and certainly more recently, COVID. The internet drastically expands the field of eligibles. You're not just with the people that you meet, now you've expanded beyond. But not everyone is satisfied with their dating experience, whether it be online or otherwise. And so we need to consider, what are some of the disadvantages of romance? Well, not everyone seems to have the same access to opportunities for healthy, meaningful relationships. Much of the barriers that are provided by media images of what is desirable, what is attractive in a partner, thus tends to exclude, or people feel that they're excluded based on their size, their physical disability, their age. There are also obstacles to relationships, and one of the biggest one, and as a counselor I was involved quite a bit, communication gap. One of the main reasons relationships don't succeed is you stop talking, and more importantly, you stop communicating. So many difficulties in intimate relationships relate to gender role socialization. Women are encouraged to relationship build, men are encouraged to do things. Men tend to use communication to achieve goals, establish authority, and compete for attention and power. Women tend to use it to build connections and solve problems. Thus, both become baffled and hurt by perceived lack of understanding from their partner. But it isn't so much that we've been socialized to communicate differently. As we've gone through stages and get into intimacy building, we really need to spend time talking and communicating and keeping things open, not just talking about the good things, talking about the things that are conflicting and troubling. Same-sex couples tend to adopt more equal communication in their relationship. In both same and opposite-sex couples, communication about feelings more often occurs non-verbally than verbally, and misunderstandings therefore become common. Individuals come to new relationships with expectations based on the past, learned from family or through relationships with friends and lovers. So some expectations result in warped communication and crippling of a relationship. Examples would be like treating another as property, making the partner fit a fantasy ideal, deliberately misrepresenting oneself are all faults and barriers to good relationships. Quality of the relationship during the process of mate selection is important for marriage or cohabitation. Once communication patterns are established, they're really difficult to change without a shared concerted effort to do so. Infidelity ranges from flirting to kissing to sexual intercourse and often breaks trust. Reasons given for infidelity include relationship dissatisfaction, revenge, jealousy, desire for variety, sexual incapacity. This, as with many other obstacles, involves communication. The reason those things exist is that people stop talking about what was important. Dating violence takes the same form as violence in a marriage. Date rape reported more often than marital rape, perhaps because sexual access is regarded as a right of a spouse. Sexual aggressiveness is more common among single men than single women. For men, it is related to the acceptance of what is known as rape myths, especially the belief that women, even when they are raped, enjoy the sexual activity. That is absolutely false, and is why, that becomes another huge barrier. Violence also occurs in the lesbian and gay relationships, similar in frequency and type of that between heterosexual couples. Well, this completes our overview of Chapter 3, Getting Together. Next week, we're going to explore the chapter of wedding bells, or not. So we'll see you next week. Good luck and keep up the good work. Bye now.